Plot, Blind, 2017. Best-selling novelist Bill Oakland loses his wife and his side in a vicious car crash. 5 years later, socialite Suzanne Dutchman is forced to read to Bill in an intimate room 3 times a week as a plea bargain for being associated with her husband's insider trading. A passionate affair ensues, forcing them both to question whether or not it's ever too late to find true love. But when Suzanne's husband is let out on a technicality, she is forced to choose between the man she loves and the man she built a life with. Voiceover off.
When you're blind and watching movies, what will you find? A blind superhero whose superpowers are acting like he's not blind. A sighted actor over dramatically touching people's faces. Or maybe the whole joke is that they're bumping into different places. A spectacular, macular
Welcome to Citizen White Cane, the podcast where we sit with blind characters for 2 hours each week, at first out of obligation, but over time we learn to love them. My name is Sky McLeod.
I'm Melissa Bukta.
And we are talking about the 2017 film. Well, it was released, it says sometimes it's 2016 and sometimes 2017, but luckily it has a very distinct title that will make it very easy to find.
So distinct.
Which is Blind.
So easy to find that I was trying to pull the list up on Apple TV and I can't find it at all.
Oh.
It doesn't come up. According to Apple TV, it doesn't exist. Obviously, Alec Baldwin plays our titular blind character.
Yes.
But I should look up because I didn't recognize Suzanne or her husband or anybody else.
Well, it's Demi Moore, right?
Oh yeah, I could, because she kept talking and I was like, I know that voice. Okay, that answers the question. What was Demi Moore doing these days? She's starring in films with Alec Baldwin.
As of what would it be, 3 to 4 years ago?
Yeah. Oh my God, this must have been a straight to video release or something, because I don't ever remember hearing anything about this in theaters. Granted, I was in my last year of conservatory in 2017, so I was very preoccupied.
That could have been, I don't know. I didn't see anything that said specifically it was like straight to DVD or anything, like, or I guess they're like would be straight to streaming at this point. But I don't think so. I think it might have just been like a very culturally insignificant movie, maybe.
Probably. I
think it got a wide release. I think I did read that it got a wide release.
Granted, it's my week this week, so that's where we're watching this, and I was quite stumped last week as to what to pick.
Yeah,
because we wanted something kind of, kind of crappy.
I wanted something crappy.
Yeah.
Just to take credit for my weird things.
Yes. And I have to say, although I don't think this movie is great by any stretch of the imagination, as a movie, it's not bad. It's very silly. Competent. It's very silly. It's very silly. But does it have a beginning, a middle, and an end? And is it shot fine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And is it, just to kind of get into what our podcast is about with blind representation, it's not like there's nothing like really offensive about the Alec Baldwin's character other than it's Alec Baldwin, not an actual blind person.
I know. I could not get past the fact that I'm watching Alec Baldwin, although that's honestly what I think when I watch any movie that he's in.
He's it's someone Alec who doesn't Baldwin. Disappear into roles.
No,
he's just, and he's always like the same basic character, sort of. Like he's just like different levels of charming with the same character, basically.
Different levels of charming asshole with...
Yeah. There's the same kind of assholey character that like you can just kind of dial up or down the charm, and that's kind of like his range is just like taking that same character and making them a range of charming.
Yeah.
But I felt like he was on the pretty far end of the charming, like to the charming end, yet the characters acted like he was a dick.
Oh, I know. And I'm like,
dickish.
Honestly, he's really not that horrible. Like, and he actually has a legitimate reason to feel the way he does. Now maybe he's been grieving for far too long, and it is time for him to get over it. And I think that's one of the lessons that he learns in this film. But he's not cussing anybody out. He's not hurting anybody. He's not throwing books at anybody.
Because he says mean things to Demi Moore's character. Because okay, so Demi Moore's character is a business. Her husband has some sort of business scam going on, but I'm not really sure. It's insider trading.
He's a businessman who does business things.
It's very unclear exactly what.
It's incredibly unclear because the movie doesn't care.
Yeah,
that's it. It's literally. I gotta stop saying it's literally. I hate that because I listened back to myself and I'm like, stop saying that. Anyway,
it's okay.
He is a plot device.
Yes.
Their whole relationship
is literally a plot device.
He is literally. We can actually use that. He is literally a plot device so that Demi Moore's character and Alec Baldwin's character can meet.
Yes, and it is kind of it. Yeah, it doesn't feel like he serves really much of any other purpose. Other than, I guess, that she has a husband, so that because they wind up falling in love, so it's so it creates tension that he's her husband also.
Right. He's also evil jackass husband number 3076.
Just in the world.
In movies.
Yeah. Well, and he's a weird kind of asshole that he was just kind of a dick the entire movie, and then at the very end he does the cycle of abuse is involves kind of oh gosh, there's an actual term for it. I should know this. But there's kind of when if someone's is getting up the courage to leave, then you're like, oh, I love you. I'm sorry.
Right.
And he does that near the very end of the movie. But a lot of the times he's getting her to stay in the relationship by being a dick. And it's that's not actually, that doesn't really make sense. That's not technically how abuse works. Well, it's just kind of a weird, I don't know.
His abuse was, he doesn't physically hit her or hurt her.
He's very emotionally abusive.
His abuse is incredibly emotionally abusive. Yeah,
and he
that's
is
how he controls her.
He does have unnecessary, uncalled for violent outbursts that are completely.
That is true.
But it's just not towards her specifically. Mm-hmm. But then that also gives you the sense that there might be some more threat to her safety also.
Yeah, there is potential here for him to get more violent towards her. And shouldn't she end up with the wonderfully handsome, sensitive, sardonic writer character that, has wooed her with all of his seductive language and showed her a good time, and they went on walks together that were so magical. I know, I sound like I'm poo-pooing this whole premise when actually, like I said at the top of the show, it's cute, it's competent, it's fine.
Yeah,
it won't harm anyone. It's fine.
It's definitely, and the blind, the way that the script deals with the blindness is not super problematic. Some of it's it will occasionally veer into that.
I like that they call him visually impaired though. Yes, they call him blind, and he identifies as blind because he's blind.
Right.
But he's also, the word visually impaired is thrown around, and that felt really cool for me, being visually impaired person. I have embraced blind because that's what I am.
Yeah.
But technical term is visually impaired. I have some vision. He has some vision.
Right. He has some vision, though. I don't know. I always get more annoyed when people say visually impaired because it always seems to me like they're downgrading you.
Right. Well, I was always afraid to say blind because to me, blind meant you have no vision, or you don't have any light sense. You have nothing. You are blind. But then by
saying we're blind, we get to educate people on the actual definition of blind.
Right. I find it much easier to say that I am blind now, but when I was growing up, I was not blind. I was visually impaired.
Yeah, I think that sometimes I've heard things where you'll have two able people where it's oh, say visually impaired, not blind. It's no, you guys, you're not talking to blind people. Come on.
Blind is not a dirty word. And
yeah.
And if you want to call me blind or visually impaired, or over in the UK they just say VI.
Oh, that's cool if it's initials.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm call me any of those things, but I'm not afraid now to identify as a blind person because that's what I am.
Yeah.
Visually impaired is a subsection of what I am, which is blind. So I just thought it was really cool that I can't remember if he himself refers to himself as visually impaired, but I know some of the staff workers did.
Right. Well,
refer to him specifically.
There's also, because I figured do you want to do a clip real early on? Because I did get a clip from the first few minutes of, like, this is within maybe the first 15 minutes. So.
I mean, play that clip, because I'm not going to lie, like, we get to hear Alec Baldwin speak.
Actually, this clip, barely, I don't think he really speaks. We can...
Fuck you. No, I'm kidding.
He speaks at the end of the clip, so we can keep playing to hear him.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the scene where we have the receptionist, kind of person who runs sort of this place for the blind that
Ella.
Alec Baldwin gets services from. Yes, Ella is her name, according to the person who actually knows names, which is you, Melissa. I don't know. I said that very weirdly, but
that's okay. Ella. Yeah, and the place he's learning at is Beacon for the Blind.
Yeah, is that a real one? It sounds
God,
real.
that sounds so real. That's something I should have looked up. But yeah, I'm like, this has to be real. Anyway, but that's where he's going.
There's all variations of similar ones, but I think it is portrayed in a very positive light in the movie. So they could have probably used a real one, because they wouldn't have they're not like besmirching like someone's name.
It felt a lot like the NFB headquarters in Baltimore.
Oh,
they have a huge center for the blind in Baltimore. It's really cool.
Nice. Well, you'll definitely have to talk more about that. But in this clip, we have do we say that that it is community service? What is Demi Moore's character name?
Suzanne. We can say community service. For now, we'll just say community service, and then we can elaborate on it after the clip.
Yeah, it's because I mean, we already talked about that her husband is committing crimes, and so she just winds up getting implicated in that, and instead of getting a jail sentence, has to do community service, which is how she meets Alec Baldwin.
Yes.
And this is the first scene where, at the beginning of her, before she's met Alec Baldwin, this is just the Ella talking about Alec Baldwin before she meets him.
Welcome to the Beacon for the Blind. Right this way. Always keep in mind his disability is only one aspect of his personality. Yeah, you'll get used to it. Use his name when addressing him in a group setting. Oh, hey, Janice. Hey. Don't ever push, poke, or shove him.
Of course not. Why would I do that?
Well, when people see a blind person start to get up, their instinct is to help him. But with Bill, if he ever needs any help, he'll let you know. He can still see shapes in light, but don't use any hand signals or gestures. He won't be able to make them out. And then one last thing. For the visually impaired, feeling is seeing. So don't be alarmed if he touches you.
Touches?
Just give me 1 minute. Bill? Bill?
Yes?
Good news for you today. We finally have a female reader for you.
What does she look like?
What do you care?
Well, I wasn't always blind.
Haha. Ugh. Suzanne? Suzanne Dutchman. Meet Bill Oakland.
How do you do, Mr. Oakland?
Tough name to carry around these days, I'm sorry.
And then
Excuse me?
This is kind of like a longer.
Yeah.
We don't have to go to. But so I just thought that was a good clip because it had the different, just the like rundown of the things you're supposed to do with a blind person.
Well,
so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think that is placed there and she says it that way because not only are you. Is Suzanne learning, but the audience. It's for
exactly.
It's exposition for the audience, so that Suzanne and Bill don't have to have this long, drawn out conversation. Like,
about
so what can you see? You know,
right.
Yeah, and
which it's funny because they do this twice. Like I was like, which one should we play? Because this is actually a monologue that we hear slightly different before that monologue. Because we have two characters we meet that are working with Bill, and the other character has already met him, and so he gets the same lecture,
Gavin,
but it's slightly different.
His previous reader, Gavin,
yeah,
whom is really cool actually, but he's not Bill's favorite at first because Bill prefers a female voice,
right? Because he is upset about anyone who comes in to read to him. Apparently, everyone has trouble with Bill is what we get before we meet him
because he's angry and crotchety and mean.
He's sort of
yeah. It's really interesting. It's that fine line. It's like lovable me.
Right. I mean, I think that it's weird to me too, because I'm like, we're in New York, so it's like this. I mean, I could see like if you're in Southern California that he would come off as mean, but like these are New Yorkers. Like he does not come. He comes off as very nice. Like he's very nice for a New Yorker. He's just like slightly abrasive, but like in a way that's like he will make fun of people for things that seem legit, and it's not like he punches down or anything.
No.
Like he's usually punching up.
Right. He also doesn't. He's an intellectual person, and I also think that he just doesn't want to deal with stupid people.
Yeah.
Get on his level or get out. He doesn't have time for you.
Right. And he's just like, and he's also just like kind of, he seems generally pretty like friendly. I don't know, maybe this is just being brought up in more of a like East Coast family. Like my mom's from New York, my dad's from Boston, so it's like I'm just like, that's how you show love, is just being kind of abrasive. Like, that just means that he likes you.
Well, in my family, getting called a little shit is a term of endearment. So yeah, I get that.
I mean, there is like, and he is just very it really does not feel like kind of very, like it doesn't feel very what's the right word, like aggressive at all, but that's kind of, and I don't know, blind people are generally pretty, I think we tend to have a pretty wry sense of humor.
You have to. Yeah.
You gotta. So it's just seems like, but they're like, he is unlike anyone else here, and that he is so abrasive and mean, and you're like, I don't know, sure, whatever.
And I'm getting back to his blindness, and his character's blindness. I like that all of that exposition is stated because it's said that he sees shapes and colors. He sees he has light sensitivity. This now gives this blind character or the actor permission to look at someone's eye line. He can't see her eyes, obviously, like me, but he can see enough of a blob, so he knows in what direction technically he is supposed to be looking. So you could kind of sort of excuse some of the eye lines and the sighted things that he does, because he still has a little bit of vision left. That makes sense. So that was actually really cool. I'm like, cool, I don't have to come in here and rag on Alec Baldwin because he didn't try or do enough, because I think he did.
He did fine. I mean, given that introduction of the character with his vision, it didn't, like, I'm always, for this podcast, paying attention to people's eye lines, so I was focusing in on it, because that's what I always do, but it really, there was no point where I was like, he did, like, this seems totally unbelievable. Yeah, because, like, occasionally he will do some sighted, like, looking around, but it's really not that much. Though it is kind of funny, like, after watching Touch of the Light, I feel like we have, like, a real blind actor, and his eyes are all over the place. I'm like, that's like what my eyes are, probably more like that than anything else.
Yeah, Alec, comparing Shang's eyes to Alec's eyes, or Bill's eyes, I guess. I know his name is Bill, but he's Alec Baldwin.
I know, it is very,
Anyway,
and Bill and Alec are both kind of just like generic 4-letter white dude names.
Yes,
No, 5 and 4.
There you go. But if you look at Shang's eyes and you look at Bill's eyes, they're completely different. I mean,
they're both 4. I don't know what my brain is. Sorry,
it's okay.
I just wanted to say that.
It's okay.
Yes,
but because we meet him like right after that scene, and it's the traditional, we're going to shoot this blind guy, but you're only seeing parts of him. Like, you see his mouth, and then you see his eye, and then you see part of his head, or side of his head, and I'm like, wow, that's visual language for he's blind.
Yeah. It is weird how many I wish they did that with other people's eyes. It's only his eyes, and I'm like, that I was like,
his
okay,
eyes,
whatever.
Yeah, but his eyes are normal.
Yeah.
There's nothing, no offense to Alec or anything, he's got beautiful eyes, but there's nothing that says these eyes are blind. And again, I'm not saying he has to wear prosthetics to make his eyes look different. Not all, you and I we have, quote unquote, normal eyes, looking eyes.
Normal looking eyes.
Eyes.
Yeah, it's sometimes like, and then it's also that question of like, how much is a normal looking eyes, like in a picture they look normal, or is it like actually how you use them on a day? Because I'll all the time not be looking at things, or like there's a lot of you know, and sometimes I'll snap into like pretend, like not pretending I can see, but just like I'm not trying to see, so I'll just like look directly at people because I'm like, I don't need to see you. I just want you to like not notice that I'm not, like that I can't see you, basically. Like, so I'll just look at someone even though that means I can't see them at all, because whatever I'm looking at I can't see. But like, so, you know, to see something I'm going to look away from it, so that can be that's definitely noticeable to sighted people. But then it's also like my eyes look normal. If you just took a picture, and I mean, a lot of pictures I'm not looking in the normal direction you would expect me to be looking, so that sometimes gives it away. But like, if, you know, just a snapshot of my eyes, they look normal, but then it's like how much you use them, because some people don't have one or have prosthetic one.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't mean to say like normal, because what is normal? We don't know what normal is, but that was
right. But there's like layers of it, though. I mean, I know what you mean.
I mean, I had a good friend who was blind, and his eyes were, I don't remember what the technical term for his condition, but he has the one where the whites of the eyes grow over the irises, and they're so thick that, so when you look in his eyes, it's just white. There's nothing else there. Yeah.
That, well, and I don't know, how do you feel about, like, even if his eyes were weird, not weird, that's too judgmental. Different. I mean, even if his eyes were, like different, what's not considered to be the, you know, normally what people's eyes look like, would we need to have all those close-ups of them?
No. I guess I just find it curious that the same visual language is used to convey blindness.
Like the close-up of the eyes?
The close-up of the eyes, the close-up of the mouth, the close-up of an ear. I'm not saying we saw his close-up of an ear in this film.
Do we see close-ups of other body parts?
No.
Yeah, because those would be more relevant.
Right, it's just him. Like, I find it much easier, like Touch of the Light. You saw, when there was a close-up, it's always hands.
Right.
It's always his hands.
Which makes way more sense.
Yeah, which makes so much more sense. Or what he's doing with them, with his hands.
Right. It would be like if someone didn't have an arm and you were just putting in the space when their arm's supposed to be. It's like, this is a bad shot, you guys. There's no reason for this. Like, you know, you would want to see, if you're going to do that, you would want to see, like, if they only were, if they had one arm, like maybe what they have to do, or like something they would do with their feet if you're really going to do that. But then it's also like, I don't know. I mean, especially with blindness, like, I don't know. We can't see, I guess it depends on what kind of visual impairment you have, but like I can see things that are very close up, but then I also can't see the details of, like, I also have to be physically close to something to see it. So like if you have a close up of a non-blind person's eyes, that's not something I can see unless I'm like in their face. Like I can't see people's eyes. So sometimes it is kind of like jarring to like have these close-ups of someone's face when I'm like, most blind people, I mean, depending on the kind of condition you have, maybe, but it is like, it feels almost like something that most blind people are less likely to be able to perceive as like a close-up of a body part of someone, other than, like hands or something like that would be closer to your eyes in some circumstances. But I don't know.
And maybe we're supposed to take this as what Suzanne is seeing, and how...
Yeah, that could be.
And the parts of him that she's seeing. I mean, it's hard, you know. We're talking about a visual medium that is trying to represent someone with a lack of vision.
Right. So though he does, there is one shot in the movie.
Where you see what he sees.
And then I'm like, oh, look, it's like the world to me. Like, I was like, this is exactly how the world looks to me.
I did the same thing. I was like, okay, I'm fine with this. My world is a wee bit more in focus, but basically that's what I see.
Yeah. I'm like, I think maybe I'm just very slightly more in focus, but I was just like, yeah, no, that seems about right. That seems exactly. Because I think it's also like you see the street or something, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's my vision. So yes, but I mean, you could have technically filmed the whole movie that way, because I was always very like, especially when we have scenes with just Alec Baldwin and Demi Moore like in the room together, and we have close-ups of Demi Moore, and I'm like, who's seeing this? Like, who is this perspective coming from? Because it's like you just have a blind person and her, so it's not her and it's not the blind person.
Oh, and okay, since we are talking about them being together, so obviously he takes her on as his reader.
Yeah.
Even though they have they squabble and spat.
At the like first couple times.
In the first couple times, yeah.
And then they're like kind of slowly become friends, I guess.
A little flirty, and then they become friends, and they flirt. But yeah, because he doesn't like the way she reads. He doesn't like her cadence.
Which she doesn't read very well.
No, she doesn't read. She starts out shitty, and then she gets a little better.
Right.
But no, yeah. And then he likes to keep the room. He likes to keep the window closed because he doesn't want any outside distractions. He needs to concentrate on the words. He makes a point, actually, which I thought was very interesting and nice, about the fact that he can't see the words for proofreading.
So he has to focus more.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which I was like, yeah, that's right.
That makes sense.
Because I don't like when things are hot, but so I'm always instantly going to relate to whoever's hot in a scene. But then I was like, oh, but I totally understand what he means. Like having distractions from outside when you're hearing someone read something would be really difficult. Like it's really hard to process it.
Something that you as a professor need to edit and put a grade on.
Right.
Because he is a college.
Do we say that that's what she's reading?
Oh no, he is a college professor, a university professor in creative writing because he's a novelist, and basically he needs readers to read his students' creative writing work.
Right.
So that's what she is.
And
to do.
that's also why our other reader character, who then, because he has a man's voice, winds up just being a handy man for Alec Baldwin instead of a reader. And his name is
Gavin.
Gavin. I was like, it starts with a G. So Gavin, he wanted to take Alec Baldwin's class. Is like a fan of his, but then because Alec Baldwin has also written books, because I think we said he was a novelist already. But yeah, so he lies at first, saying that he's an NYU student and just couldn't get into Alec Baldwin's class, and then later on we find out he doesn't have enough money to even be at NYU. Yeah. So he's just like it was just his way of like having Alec Baldwin teach him, and so that's I don't remember specifically why I brought that up, but
they eventually do come to an understanding because Alec realizes that Gavin he's not the reader that he wants, but maybe he could come over and do some handiwork and help out around his apartment,
right?
Which he does, begrudgingly, but he does, and he's rewarded with not with money, but he's rewarded with being able to come and
does Alec
sit in
Baldwin not
his
give
class.
him money? I can't remember because they talk about it.
They do. It's kind of a funny exchange. No, he gives him the opportunity to come to his class, which is what Gavin wanted. Right. Money, I'm sure, is great and would help also, but what he really wanted was to get insight and to be taught.
I mean, he could have kind of done both, though.
I mean, yeah.
He lives in New York, and he had a nice place, so
really
Alec Baldwin
nice
could have
place.
definitely he could have spared some change for this guy.
Yeah, but hey, we're artists. We'd rather be paid in experience. So
you can definitely be paid in both, especially with someone who seems like they probably could. Though, I mean, he is a professor and a novelist, which you're like, I don't know if his place would be that nice. Doesn't feel like you'd be making enough money.
Well, we don't know what his wife did.
Yes, because
she might have been bringing in the bacon.
Because his wife, possibly, we just get very vague windows into what the whole deal is with her.
We see her in flashback, but right before the accident,
they killed her and took his sight. Which is and they were about to get a divorce. It's kind of weird because it's very it's made to be a very important part of the movie and something we keep coming back to, but then we also don't really get a lot of information, and the information we do get is not usually used all that much. The only thing that's really used about the car accident is, first of all, his wife is dead and then he's blind, and that's basically it. There's not he's having trouble getting over his wife.
I think this is a story about a novelist who has a severe case of writer's block, because I think that's even said or brought up at one point. I'm blocked, and the only reason I'm not now is because of you, because Suzanne has come into his life and lit that spark. Because Gavin, when he's cleaning, finds an old manuscript of this novel that Alec Baldwin had been working on before the accident, and he decided he couldn't do it anymore. He didn't want to finish it, so Gavin takes it and reads it. Because his book, the book that Alec Baldwin's character had written taught him how to be a man. He wrote this amazing book, something Venus, that taught everybody.
Yeah, I could not. I actually went like 3 times to like see if I could read the title, and I gave up because Hulu's ability to pause is really annoying.
Yeah.
And so who knows? But yeah, so which I mean, it is kind of interesting. They don't really talk about how he would technically also need someone to write for him, theoretically.
Theoretically, I mean, there's spoken programs on computers that you can use.
But okay, because he is having them read. But he even has, at one point, he has people read, or he has Suzanne read the works of his students, and so which are handwritten, which kind of doesn't make any sense. He could just have them send him readable files, like,
that is
logistically.
True. But I think he needs to hear a human voice read their work, and that's how he makes sense of everything.
Right.
I mean, would you want a computer voice reading to you, 6 hours a day or whatever? And she's only reading to him for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, she doesn't have super long, which also is like, because then she's also like, when he's doing books for like that he's gonna have the students read, he also has to reread them. So that's another thing that he has her doing, which also, like, what was the one that she was reading, like, it's a whichever book it was, it's a famous book that probably has an audiobook.
Anna Karenina.
Yeah, I'm sure that has an audiobook. So, like, I'm sure you could get the audiobook of that.
But at this point they were kind of sort of, getting to like each other. So
right.
maybe he just wanted to hear her voice.
I mean, I'm sure that's it, but it is like there are technological things that he could be doing for all the stuff he has her doing already. So you would think he'd probably.
I think that's another reason why I kind of sort of was okay with this movie as far as all the cliches and everything, because he falls in love with her for her. For her voice, for her personality, for her life, for everything that makes her.
Yeah.
Because he can't tell what she looks like.
But in that clip, he even asks, which is silly.
Yeah.
It is kind of weird when you think about it, because, like, a blind person asking about how attractive someone is, there is kind of, like, it does kind of put it to a window of how, like, there are aspects of relationships that have much more to do with, like, social, like, currency than they actually do with, like, just simple attraction. That's definitely something I think about. Like, you hear people who, feel ashamed of, like, certain people they're interested in because it's, like, seen as you're not supposed to, like, you're talking about, like, people being out of someone's league or something, when it's, like, it doesn't actually take into account that, like, that's not truly how attraction works necessarily. And, like, sometimes people might make choices based on what they're supposed to like and not, necessarily someone that they would find, like, that they actually find attractive as much. So I just think about that when we have these blind characters asking if people are attractive, like, that it has much more to do with what society will think of you than it actually has to do with the attractiveness, which, I mean, I guess is kind of, like, true of all sighted people too. It's just that it's more stark when you have a blind character. But yeah.
Well, I appreciated that aspect. Like, that's cool. Like, we're getting to see a relationship. I have a really hard time saying that feels real, because everything in this movie just falls so neatly together, and it's you can predict, like, where this thing is going.
Yes, some
at
of them
every single turn, and I'm like, I should really hate this movie, and I don't really hate this movie.
I mean, it's definitely by the books. It's
so extremely.
Yeah. And I think that, like, I mean, a lot of movies are like that. I mean, sometimes the most disastrous movies are the ones where you are like, okay, I guess this is probably where they're going with this, and then they do something that makes no sense, and you're like, wait a second, you didn't even do the obvious thing, you just did something that now there's just all these plot holes, and it just doesn't actually make any sense that would happen. Those are the ones that are the worst. There's just so many movies where it's like, okay, I guess we just connected the dots that you always connect, and it's like, it was fun along the way. It's like a roller coaster. It's like, I've been on, like, the exact same loops, and, this how the roller coasters go up, they go down, you kind of get a sense of how they're going to be. you know, but it was fun just because we did it, I guess. But
Yeah. I'm not angry that we watched this, and I feel 180 degrees different than when we watched the trailer last week, because I was like, oh, this, here you go, you want a bad movie? Here, this is gonna be terrible. Like,
I know
this is gonna be
am I gonna have to
subpar.
start like really going into like bad movies? Because maybe we could just switch places.
You might, and this was on a list of like
Worst.
lower tier blind people,
I
and
don't trust those lists very much.
I mean, yeah, and I'm not going to say, you know, this is 100% the best depiction of a blind person that we've seen, because it's not, you know, obviously. But I think that a lot of this is credit to Alec Baldwin is a damn good actor. And he can take almost any dialogue and elevate it and come off as completely believable.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely comes off as, he doesn't come off as like obviously sighted, which sometimes actors do. Like, and I think that it is weird when it is like an actor that is so identifiable. Like, it is different, I think, for me watching this, because it's just, Alec Baldwin is just always Alec Baldwin no matter what, and it's just all you can think of when he's on the screen.
Right.
And so he doesn't disappear into roles, like he kind of can't, but like, so it is kind of weird watching him play a blind character when we've like analyzed all these different actors, you know, that we know to varying extents, but to have someone that's so like noticeably who they, you know, they're themselves. It is kind of weird, because you're like, you kind of have to be like, okay, yeah, he's blind in this movie, but it's weird because most of the time you're like, oh, it's also Alec Baldwin, so it's just like, yeah, he's pulling off that he's Alec Baldwin.
I want to look up the Rotten Tomatoes score for this really quick, because I'm very interested. I want to know, because I didn't really look up any reviews or see anything like that.
I think. Yeah, I don't remember, actually. I was looking up some stuff.
I saw in the credits, though, Alec Baldwin did executive produce the movie.
That makes sense.
He was one of them. Yeah. So I'm wondering how much input he had on the character of Bill.
Okay, so let's see. On Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 19%.
Okay.
But 80% of Google users liked it, and 5.8% of IMDb people liked it, and 36% on Metacritic. So I guess it's like panned by critics and decently liked by audiences, is what it seems like. Yeah.
I mean, if you cut out all of the bullshit with her crooked husband and all of his dealings and everything, then yes, the other part of the movie is the part I actually enjoyed. I enjoyed these two people kind of sort of getting together and flirting, going out, and yes, of course, you know, obviously spoilers, they end up together at the end of the film.
Spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they're going to end up together at the end of the movie, and they do.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about this movie is, like, I can't imagine there would ever be a human being on Earth who would be like, this is my favorite movie.
No. Oh, no. If you asked me, like, yeah, this is definitely not my favorite movie. But is this, you know, did I think about recommending it to my mom afterwards? Yeah, actually.
So yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's like it does what it does well enough. And yeah, I mean, I think that as for like kind of the blind, I mean, because we do have so much of the movie as random blind stuff, and some of it is kind of like, you know, we just like little things that are like, yeah, I mean, this is right enough. Like, there's nothing like shows up where it feels like, oh my God, this is some, like, either this is something that I can totally relate to and I've never seen in a movie before, and there's also nothing where you're like, what the fuck, no blind person has ever done that, except for they do have some face touching.
Yes, the face touching scene happened, and I was like, oh, Sky's gonna have a field day. And then the blindfold came out, and I laughed.
That part I thought was funny. That's I feel like that one, weirdly enough, it should be more cliche, but that's like the first movie we've watched with that in it, so I guess it's not that cliche.
Isn't that weird? No, but not only that, but I was kind of like, wow, in the context of their relationship, I don't know, it kind of works. Like, I could see, I don't know, like, I could see these two people like, hey, you want to put the blindfold on? Yeah.
Because it could be kind of like kinky.
It's a little kinky. I was watching this, and I was going, wow, this is kind of kinky.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it didn't bother me as much, because it felt just like more playful. And, you know, sex is supposed to be playful, because they're kissing. I mean, to like kind of describe that scene, like, it's with, is it the first time they kiss?
Yes, I think so, because then after that, it comes easier.
Yeah, she likes, like, me, yeah, and because it's after, I think they go on a date, right?
Yes, because he takes her to the wonderful French restaurant, and they stroll down the streets of Brooklyn, talk about Paris and all the places that they want to go,
and what traveling is like,
and what traveling is like.
And then they get back to his place, and she's like, I want to see the world like you see the world, and then she puts her scarf, I think it's a scarf, like on her eyes, and then they kiss. So it is very
after he's touched her face and she's touched his face.
Oh yeah, is there like, are they both kind of, I can't remember, are they both connected to, are they in like the same moment of like one then the other? I think you might be right.
Yeah, it all happens. Yeah, she wants him to touch her because she asks him, what do I look like? And he says, well, you look like a blob, basically. not uses much better words than that, but yeah, you look like a blob. And so she has him touch her face, and he's like, you're so fragile. Like, only Alec Baldwin can make that line palatable.
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty questionable.
No doubt.
Fragile.
And then she touches him. You're fragile too.
Oh my god, a woman and a disabled person are fragile? Wow, that's really saying something revolutionary over here.
They've both been through trauma. Holy shit.
Well, yeah, but you would think someone who's been through trauma, if you're going to use a metaphor, they would be tough. They would have, like, be resilient. That's would technically be the correct term.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the metaphor. It's just the way it happens is weird.
What is the metaphor?
Well, he's fragile because he went through this awful accident that took his wife and took his vision, and so he's learned to
resilient.
Well, he's learned to be resilient. He's learned to have a tough skin, but she's spent time with him, and she's found that person that's underneath, that fragile person, and she has lived with this douchebag for however long or whatever, and she presents this tough, thick skin to the world. Like it doesn't matter, but she is, fragile and deserves a kinder person and deserves to be looked after. So I get it.
But they're both pretty direct people. They kind of just speak their mind whenever, and then I don't know. I feel like you can kind of tell both sides of them from the beginning. It doesn't really feel like there's some sort of uncovering of who they are.
No,
they seem pretty they seem pretty New Yorker, both of them. Just I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah, but we've also watched a bunch of movies together, so it's it's no surprise that they would put on a thick, tough skin, and then you find out, oh, but you're so fragile.
Right.
It's not really,
Right, but I guess I don't, I feel like from the beginning to the end of the movie, their circumstances change, but it just doesn't really feel like their personalities. I guess Suzanne, her personality becomes she is more emotionally available by the end, I think. But I don't even know if Alec Baldwin becomes more, I guess he sort of becomes more emotionally available. Yeah,
well, emotionally available in the sense that he learns that he can love again.
Right, that he's ready, emotionally available. Yeah. I mean, I guess so. It feels like they both have kind of a charm and a not super. Neither of them seem all that psychopathic from the begining, to me at least, and then I don't
think they're psychopath. If anyone is a psychopath in this movie, it's her husband.
Yeah, well, he is definitely, but they're both characters. Everyone else treats them like they're so, well, because Demi Moore's line where she keeps saying that he's self-centered and a narcissist, but just happens to be blind. And I'm like, do you know that those mean exactly the same thing? Self-centered and narcissist. So it's very redundant. It's just one concept. So it seems dumb. But then she like says at the beginning, she's like, you are she says that at the beginning that he just happens to be blind, and then at the end she's like, at first I thought you were self-centered and a narcissist and just happened to be blind, and now I still think that you're self-centered, a narcissist, and blind. And I'm like, wait a second. But you're also, I don't even remember what the also is, but like a night, fragile underneath or whatever she says.
Yeah,
that's not what she says.
I think that's what she says. Like, you're fragile.
Right, but then it's like, you're not. That's, first of all, again, you're saying a thing that doesn't make any, that this is like, basic like logic, mathematical logic. What you're saying is completely incomprehensible. Because yes, you could be narcissistic, self-centered, and blind, and then she says that he's not that. He's just all of that plus something else. So maybe this is just my brain, my robot brain, but it really bothered me. But she, so that's from the beginning. She like accused him of being self-centered and a narcissist, and like after that he's like insulted her for being a rich person, and like, which is like fair, like her husband like just went to jail for like insider trading, so he makes assumptions about her, and granted, like, you're not supposed to make assumptions about people, and that's a fair critique, but like he's also making assumptions about her based on her husband, who did something really awful that's like very like terrible to take, like very much like abusive power, and she's rich, and he's making fun of her for being rich, and like those are not like, that's not narcissistic stuff. Like, that's just him kind of a little bit punching up in not the most productive way.
Right.
But,
and I mean, we even touched on the fact that she finds out that her husband has been having an affair with her best friend.
Right. And throughout the movie, which is kind of like a very, like, just kind of buried kind of plot that we get. We'll get every 40 minutes.
Yeah,
we'll get like another
it surfaces
thing
and then it dies and then it surfaces again. And
and there's not really a good payoff other than she's like, well, I guess I can get a divorce now. And you're like, you didn't really need that. You didn't need that at all to get for her to be justified in getting a divorce.
Could have just left him. Yeah. And of course he's like, I'll never do it again. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like, and then she essentially has an affair with Bill.
Right.
And of course, it's the end of the world, because how dare, like, he can cheat, but how dare she cheat in this relationship?
Right.
Because she's his.
Which, but that at least is like consistent with abuse.
Yes.
Like, so that I was less bothered by. But then when he was like, I hate you, but also I know you're like about to leave me, but I'm going to just say that you're a bad person and you should stay with me. Or no, he doesn't even say you should stay with me. He's just like, you're a bad person, but you're, we're still married, right? And she's like, yeah, I guess so. And you're like, okay, why? Like, she has no incentive to like say that she's not, I don't know. It's weird. I don't remember the exact specifics, but I was just like, why? You could show a little bit more of like why she's staying in a relationship. It seemed like to me like the writers have never been in an abusive relationship, but they've like only just known that someone was in an abusive relationship and assume that someone stays in an abusive relationship even when they're like, there's no incentive for them to stay, and like just doesn't fully understand how the dynamics of abuse work, which is why it bothered me. Like, because normally I would be like, abuse, you should never be like, that's not real abuse. Right. But it's like, but it's more just, it doesn't feel real because it is written by someone who's a man. So.
Yeah, and I mean, as long as we're talking about this, it's these people are caricatures. I mean, well, they're not. The husband is absolutely a caricature.
He's definitely a caricature. Yeah.
And even though Demi Moore and Alec Baldwin's characters are more developed,
they're still kind of
caricatures. Yeah. And we're just kind of watching. Yeah, we're just kind of connecting the dots, and we're just watching these people go through the motions. But I just don't have enough vitriol to say like this is the worst thing I've ever watched.
No,
because
definitely
it's
not.
It's harmless.
It's definitely harmless. Yeah, because I think it's also just, you have a blind character that's not super offensive. You know, this, I mean, not super offensive makes it sound like it's offensive, but like that just doesn't really like set off any alarm bells. Seems fine. You know, it's good enough. There is one thing I think that I do want to talk about, because I read this article where the director talked about the decision to cast Alec Baldwin instead of an actual blind person.
Oh yeah, no, please do.
And it is very problematic, so I figure we should probably talk about it.
While Mailer, the son of Norman Mailer, who is making his directorial debut with the movie, recognizes the good work of the Foundation, he takes issue with its viewpoint. Here is his response, which he titled "Where Does Political Correctness End and Cultural Fascism Begin?"
Boo.
Related story. Alec Baldwin. To me, more are blind lovers. Roadside Ready's Lady Macbeth. Specialty BO preview. My soon-to-be released film Blind was recently criticized by the Ruderman Family Foundation, a disabled advocacy organization, for casting Alec Baldwin in the role of a partially blind man. Their objection is that Alec is not actually blind. In its statement in the July 5th Los Angeles Times, the foundation accuses the film of crip face, a takeoff on blackface. Not only is such a statement unhelpful to disabled advocacy, it also in effect discredits Academy Award-winning performances over decades by the likes of Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot, Jamie Foxx in Ray, Jon Voight in Coming Home, Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman, and Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything, to name just a few. Denigrating these actors and films
Very
is both
much.
ignorant and unfair. I have always said no movie, particularly an independent one, ever wants to get made. It must be dragged, kicking and screaming, into production. In order to greenlight an independent film, one must attract a name actor for a fraction of a studio paycheck if there is to be any chance at getting the film financed. And while I'm sure there are many talented, vision-impaired actors out there, I do not currently know of any who have the marquee appeal needed to get even a modestly budgeted film made.
Your fault.
Such are the realities of film financing today. If Jay Ruderman had his way, none of the above-mentioned movies, including mine, would ever have been
What
produced.
a beautiful
These
world that
inspiring
would be.
stories that delve into the aspirations and empowerment of the disabled would not be told, and our cultural horizons would surely be dimmer.
What?
The situation also speaks to the larger forces governing political correctness, which
Boo.
have become so poisonous as to ossify
Okay,
any
stop,
helpful
stop,
and
just
progressive
stop.
cultural
We-
discourse.
He made his
And it
point.
goes on for
Political
more
correctness
paragraphs
can be
too.
used as a cut.
He's made his point. Okay, so unfortunately, having studied disability in the media in college, I in my media minorities and the women studies class. Unfortunately, this is an argument that is made all
Over
of
and
the time,
over again.
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And
We even talked about it. I was just editing Wait Until Dark, yes. And we talked literally about this in that episode too. Like, yes. Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, no, this is an argument that is made over and over and over again. I'm not saying that it's wrong to praise those actors in those films.
I
for
will
their,
say it.
Okay. Oh, that's totally fine. No, hear me out. I'm not saying it's wrong to praise them for their acting ability, but I do think we can't just write them off and put them in a box and say, well, we can't talk about these because they already won Academy Awards and it's fine.
Yeah, the Academy Awards is so fucking ableist.
Right, exactly. And this is the insidious part that lives inside the Hollywood system, the filmmaking system that has to change. Oh, well, we can't do this movie because we don't have a bankable star. Well, then I guess you didn't really want to make this movie, did you?
Right. I mean, like, and it's so stupid to be like, he's acting like the system is like gravity. It's like, this is a system that humans created and humans can change. Like, you
Right.
can't just fucking, that's so bullshit. I mean, like, that's just being like, there's no welfare in America. And it's not like we could do anything about that ever. That's not a thing that could be changed or is worth talking about changing. But we should just like tell poor people to get jobs or whatever. It's like, no, what are you talking about?
You want to change the system? You need to put your fucking money where your fucking mouth is, and you need to cast disabled actors. You have to do that. And if that means, oh no, we have to actually come up with stories about disability or the stories that feature a disabled actor, then fucking do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Sorry.
No. I think you're totally right.
I'm on my soapbox here.
I mean, no, I 100% agree with you. And it's also just like, it's so offensive to say that it's harmful to disabled advocacy to say that you should be casting disabled actors as disabled characters. I mean, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's like disabled advocacy 101 to just be like, yeah, of course, blind people should represent blind people. Like, we should be playing blind people. It's not. That seems pretty basic, and to say that that's harmful to advocacy is super offensive.
Yes, it is. No, it is beyond offensive. That's awful, and I love the term crip face is used because it's not. I always use that. Yeah, it's not used enough, and it should be as frowned upon as black faces.
Yes,
because you're literally putting on, like they said, you're putting on this costume of disability,
right? And then it's just like it. It also means that we have these movies where we have like like directors and writers, we have all the cast is able-bodied, and then it's supposed to tell a disabled story. Like, that's never good. Like, that's how you get Birth of a Nation. That's not how you get anything worth anyone's time. Like, you know, it's just like it is not helpful to the disabled community to have movies where you don't have any disabled people working on them. Like, they're about disability. If anything, that's harmful.
Right. But I guess it's hard because I'm coming from someone who's gone to acting school and who's gone to college for theater and, you know, has tried their very best to study the craft and be better, you know, I can see it's really hard for me to just discount those performances. They're extremely ableist and they're extremely incorrect and they're wrong, but they're here. We have them on film, you know. Should this director have tried harder to cast an actual visually impaired actor rather than casting Alec Baldwin? Abso-fucking-lutely. Yeah. But I can't tell you that I didn't enjoy watching Alec Baldwin because that's not true. I absolutely did. But this whole we can't find and they're not a bankable star, that is such a piss poor excuse.
It's such I love how he didn't even say we tried. He just literally said, "Well, we can't do it. We just assume we can't do it.
We can't because you know our movie, our play, our whatever piece of art you're working on, it just will not get the financial assistance that it needs." So
and Demi Moore is not going to help at all.
Oh, I know, right? So you know what? You're making an independent film. This movie takes place in 3 locations at most, you know?
Yeah, you really don't need a big budget.
No.
Most of the budget probably went to Alec Baldwin, like.
Well, either that or what happens is these big name actors are asked, please help me work on this independent film, and they work for a fraction of what they make little to nothing.
I don't think that's what happened here. Do you think that?
I think that Alec Baldwin and Demi took a pay cut. I really do, because that's how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about independent films, and I'm not an expert. I don't
how independent
know inside
is
baseball.
This film? I'm not really sure.
I mean, when the studio logos came up, I didn't recognize a single of them. I mean,
I'm trying to remember what they were.
You want to say how independent? We didn't know this film existed.
Well, it did decide to call itself Blind, the least, like, it's just extremely, like, unnoticeable to make it be that. Because on IMDb, you have, like, movies that I'll go to when I pick a movie that have blind characters, and there's, like, a list. And I think there's 7 different films called Blind, and so they all have to have the year after them, because there's 7 of them. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you really wanted it to have sort of like long-lasting cachet.
But do you remember when we were watching the trailer for this and we heard Alec Baldwin's voice?
Our reaction. Yeah, I said I think Alec Baldwin's in that movie before we heard his voice.
Okay. But
or no, it was because we heard it.
Right. So our reaction was, "Oh my God, Alec Baldwin's in this movie. We have to watch it."
Well, we were like, "This is gonna be bad." Right.
Yes. But still. We would have watched it even if it didn't have Alec Baldwin in it, but still, like, because for this podcast, but the prospect of watching Alec Baldwin was exciting. So, although I don't support his argument at all, I think it's full of holes, and I think it's full of BS. Unfortunately, because this system refuses to change, this is how this stuff works. But I feel like
when you have, I think when the fact that Alec Baldwin is in this movie means that both of us were like, okay, we have to go through these plot points, and we're not thinking about, you know, the next, like, I watched it yesterday and I'm still like this morning I was like, oh wow, this like left no impact on me. And I think that movies with stars in them kind of are more likely to do that. Like it's not, and that's not definitely not a one-on-one, like there's many exceptions, but I think like it just having a star in it makes it seem more like, if it's just has a star and by the book storytelling, they're the least memorable movies.
Oh yeah, I mean, am I gonna forget this movie after we're done talking about it? Absolutely. Yeah. I will probably never give this movie a second thought.
But if you had like a blind actor and you had a cast of non like celebrities, like a more like just kind of off the streets cast, or you had like, you know, up and coming people that weren't as recognizable, you could have done a lot more, and I think you could have made it more endearing. Like I think this movie would have been more endearing with a less star-studded cast, because with the stars you're like, okay, well this has got to be doing something. Sure. Like it's got to really be working because it has all these stars.
Right. But what if all the people they cast are, you know, a bunch of first-timers, or people with, you know, they don't have a lot of experience? I mean, would you really want to watch an hour and 45 minutes of bad acting?
Well, not bad acting, but like but actors that aren't as like identifiable, because I think the problem with American celebrities or movie stars is that they're not as actory as actual actors. Sometimes they're the least actory because they're always themselves, you know. Like that's what we were saying at the beginning of the podcast about Alec Baldwin, and that's a lot of stars are like in America, like it's a very American thing. But like
because they're banking on their name. The directors and the producers and everybody who's making this film are convinced that this person's name is going to put butts in seats, because unfortunately that's how this system works, and that's why we don't get any new people, we don't get any disabled people, because they aren't names. Nobody knows them. Therefore, none of the studio execs want to take a risk.
But that mentality has killed movies.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing as how superheroes have killed movies, because it's just like, I never wanted to watch those. You know, my favorite director is Richard Linklater. If you get a bunch of like very like unknown cast members and you do like a very understated like realistic story about people, like that's the stuff I remember. That's the stuff that sticks with me and I care about deeply.
Oh my God. I mean, you said Richard Linklater, and I like Boyhood. I adore Boyhood. It was amazing.
It does have a couple stars, but it's not. But you have a main character that could have literally been a disabled person if that was what the story was about. You know, and it's still, and you still have stars, and you still make a good movie that's like that feels real. Because I think also I like when the main character is not a star, because I think that when the main character is a star, it's just distracting, and it makes it so you're not really in the movie. Like it just takes you way out of the movie.
Sure.
And I want someone who is unknown so that you can feel, you just relate to them more, and you're not being like, I don't really relate to Alec Baldwin. He's just Alec Baldwin. He's there. Like he's not, he's not there for me to relate to him, which is also why it's hard for me to even remember exactly how his blindness stuff worked. Cause it's like, well, yeah, he's just Alec Baldwin. I don't know. He's just being Alec Baldwin. I didn't like think, oh, what would I be like in this situation? I was just like, oh yeah, Alec Baldwin's on the screen. So I think like I'd rather most like main characters be played by unknown actors, cause I find that just to be so much more appealing. And I think that like you can have movies with whoever, like, you know, with Alec Baldwin in them, or, you know, even bigger celebrities. But then what you need to not have this fucked up system where everything has to like make 10 times like what it spent, or it has to be made on like a, you know, $2,000 or whatever.
Right.
I mean,
can you sell this movie overseas to China?
Right. Well, that's a whole other thing that makes me so mad.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and I can absolutely see why and how critics took this movie apart, or could you know, take it to task. I mean, but then you have things like, oh God, I'm going to bring it up again because I think I talked about it last week. You have movies like Peanut Butter Falcon.
Oh yeah,
you have to watch that. We need more movies like that. You know, and granted, that movie was written by Shia LaBeouf, an able-bodied actor, but he wrote it specifically for a character with Down syndrome, who is played by an actor with Down syndrome.
Yeah, and you need people. I mean, the thing is, there's only going to be people who write movies, who direct movies, and who star in movies that's only going to happen if you ever cast them, ever have them write movies, or, you know, ever greenlit their movies or let them direct. Like, that's the only way to get people, to get a pool of disabled, you know, actors, writers, and directors. That's the only way. You can't do it. It's like, there's no other way.
If you're sick and tired of seeing movies about straight white men, write something, do something, because unfortunately now I think times are changing very slowly.
We have more like movies with gay characters written by writers who are also gay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even The Way He Looks was written by a gay man, but not a blind man. Like, and so I think there is some more acceptability of people. I mean, like, because we're not there on any of it. Identity, we're there, but I feel like disability may be the absolute bottom of the barrel at this point. I think we're probably doing a little bit of a better job with everyone, even though we're not doing a great job with anyone. We're still, like, disability is so far behind.
Yeah, I imagine that maybe people don't want to work with us is because they either don't think they can, or they refuse to adapt things. This is, oh no, I have to learn a whole different working style to work with this person. And you know what? I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I don't have the money. So why bother when it's so air quotes, it's so hard to do all of these things. So why bother? Just cast an able-bodied actor to play disabled, because then you have to deal with what you know. Right. Which in these people's minds is easier. Well, I think that's a whole load of bullshit. But
right, no, but I think that's part of that argument, and I wonder if, like, what is the best way to change that? Like, is it to have, like, there be pretty much a consensus of critics that, like, the second you start, if you cast an abled actor as a disabled character, if critics are like, yeah, fuck that shit, like, we're not gonna like this, and the Academy Awards doesn't give them any awards.
I think that is the first. There's many things that needs to happen. I think that is the first major thing that needs to happen. We need to, as moviegoers, as movie critics, lovers of film, whatever, we need to call this shit out.
And, like, have no patience
when it happens. And have no patience for that. And let the higher-ups know, let the TV people know, let the movie people know, let the studios know, let the corporations and the companies who own all that shit know. This is wrong, and we are tired of it, and we are not going to take it anymore.
Because, I mean, you
can do better.
In doing this podcast, I always look up reviews, and there are times where even, like, disabled people, like, people who are not even writing as film critics, but are writing as disabled people, will be like, oh, you know, it was, like, a good portrayal, which I guess we do that, too, of, like, we always say if it's a sighted actor, we always talk about how we feel about it, but it's just, like, there's some things where I'm like, I don't even put up with this, and I will see, like, blind people online saying, oh, yeah, that's great, like, See or something, where there is, like, you know, some blind people are like, fuck this, but, like, which is like this podcast, but even if, like, in the disabled community there's it's mostly consensus this is fucked up, but it just does not go past that, and it's like, why can't critics just call people out on that? Like, I don't understand
that I don't know, because critics are their own people. They don't work for the studios. They have nothing to gain or lose by saying what they think.
Right. So why don't they just, like, make this a cause? It just seems so easy to do that. Like, there's no, like, repercussions.
I'm not sure, and I don't know. This is research that I have to actually do. I'm not sure how many of those critics are actually disabled people.
Because probably very few.
Probably
very few. Industries are.
Because you are dealing, again, it comes back to, you are dealing with a visual medium. You are dealing with a medium that is inherently designed to exclude us.
Yeah, well, us specifically. But I also think that, like, we're the best film critics, which is why we have this podcast, obviously. But, like, also, you know, I think that if you see film as excluding blind people, then that, I mean, I'm not to insult you, but, like, that's dumb. Like, blindness is a gift to film, I think, and I think that you're kind of it's just such a fucking missed opportunity not to, like, make it an integral part of the form, and it's just, I see so many sighted people do stuff like I think about cinematography and how so much of cinematography is like not what you're looking at, but everything around what you're looking at, which is why cinematography to me comes so naturally. And I'll watch movies like that are obviously the cinematographer is a sighted person. And I'm like, this is a stupid shot. Like you fucked up, man. Like, and it's always a man probably too. But like, you know, like there is all these things that we can offer because we see the world differently. And what the fuck, why wouldn't you want people who see the world differently to make movies like that? There you go. That's
Right.
like perfect people to be making movies.
And in this country, in this time right now, in this world, we are coming to a reckoning. Hopefully. Yes. Oh my God, please. And people are, you know, with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, people are standing up. Marginalized people are standing up and saying, "We are here. Notice us. We make an impact. We make a difference. We matter. We deserve to be represented."
Yeah.
And
are we not part of it though? I do worry sometimes that like, I mean, obviously we have intersectional identities as well, but like as a disabled community I think sometimes we're part of the discussion, but sometimes we're not. And sometimes I do get worried when I'll see like very activist spaces and disability is sometimes an afterthought and sometimes just completely not present at all.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gone out to any of the protests because obviously I don't want to get trampled and die.
I think disabled people don't really protest very often.
I don't know. I know this disabled person doesn't.
I mean, I don't either. And I think it is a common thing. Like, I think many disabilities make protesting not the best way to like do activism. Like, it's just very hard for a lot of disabled people.
I mean, obviously, you know, absolutely Black Lives Matter. Like, I am right there. I want to go protest that. I want to go make my voice heard. But I'm a little wary to, you know, bring up the facts like the cops are killing disabled people. 50% of the people
who die from police brutality are disabled. Which affects like obviously disabled Black people.
Right.
Like to be Black and disabled is just like cops. You have a target on your hand. Like cops are just waiting to kill you. Like it's awful.
Right. And I wanna go out there and I wanna say things like, you know, like all like Black Lives Matter.
All lives matter. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God.
Just kidding.
No,
I know you're not saying that.
No. Yeah. No. But I want to say things like, you know, like disabled Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about disability and I want to talk about this stuff because I think it's time for the disabled people to be heard. But I'm like, is it the right time?
Well, but it's so hard because like I remember a few years ago there was this like concerted effort to like write about the intersectionality of police brutality and they left out disability and it was just shocking and people were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like this is such an important part of the piece, like the puzzle. I mean,
yeah, the fact that disability isn't being talked about right now with everything that is going on it's really sad. It's concerning and it's sad. Now I can't say that it isn't at all because actually on the Takeaway, the NPR show a couple of weeks ago, they had a wonderful discussion. They had on a disabled activist who was deafblind, and she talked about the killing of.
Oh God, there's so many
I know,
deafblind people, especially.
I know. There was a person of color who was talking to his grandmother, and he was gesticulating because he's deaf, and he's a big dude. He's a wrestler, and the cops took it as he was accosting this old woman whom he wasn't. And of course,
why do we have cops?
I know.
I'm just like, why do we need these people?
I know. And of course, he couldn't follow any of the commands that the police were giving him because he couldn't hear. So they shot him and they killed him.
Yeah, it's just really, and it's so.
No,
it's obvious too. It's like having there's so many disabilities. We're like, yeah, of course you're more in danger with cops. Like everyone knows cops MOs, and like it doesn't, like, you know, having asthma. Like we hear about all these people are choked. A lot of them had asthma. That's why breathing is harder. Like there's just all these things where it's like you don't have to do a lot of thinking to understand how this is a real big problem.
One of the reasons why I'm afraid to protest is because I'm convinced and afraid that my cane will be mistaken for a weapon. And I will get, I'll either get attacked, you know, by the cops or maced or shot at or, you know, whatever, because I'm just trying to get around.
Right. And I can't like see well enough to know where things are coming from or any sort of like, and loud noises are extremely stressful and like just getting instruction is just
big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so, I mean, I think, and this is the thing that I struggle with because I'm just like, how do we fix this problem that like the protesting is a decent way of like, you know, doing activism, but is this part of the reason why disabled people are always left behind? Because we've not had any of these protest movements, and part of that is because how are we going to do that? Like, it's just not accessible. Like, if you're in a wheelchair, like, the world is not accessible to us. Like, and so it makes sense that being out on the street is part of what's inaccessible, and why so many disabled people, part of the oppression is like we're not able to leave our homes, you know, like that there's all these barriers. Like, and so you don't have the traditional protesting is not necessarily going to be something that's very liberating to us, and it's only like when we're just like, well, I'm about to die because I don't have health care and I'm like dying of cancer, you know, it's like that kind of stuff. We're like, well, I guess if I'm about to die I can just go protest. But there's, I feel like just the average person living with a disability, like, is just that it just makes it harder to protest. And I worry that that's like a part of it, because like, why are we so behind? What's different about us? I feel like our oppression is the same as all the other kinds of oppression. Like, it's all kind of the same ideas, just like in different clothing. It's, you know, oppression is oppression is oppression. And I just am so confused why we talk about disability so infrequently. It's weird. And so that's why I've been trying, like, and that's why I wonder how much of that is the inability to really protest in the way that we do in the U.S., because that is a very, you know, it is. I mean, I think there's other countries that are even more so like protest culture, but we do have a protest culture in this country. Like,
well, and I can't say that disabled people have never protested, because I mean, how did we get the ADA? We protested.
Right.
You
But
know?
then that's the only thing we've gone ever. So is it that we just do need a protest? Is that the problem? Because it's like, I feel like we protest just a lot less. Like, you know, Black Lives Matter happens every year. Like, because, you know, the cops are still going to fucking kill black people all the time. So there's always the occasion to do a Black Lives Matter protest, because we live in a very fucked up country. But like, you know, people are constantly on the street. And I feel like that's not, you know, 1990 is a while ago.
But it happens every year. And you said it. I mean, we have these protests now almost every year, and yet people are still dying. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that it is an important part of making it part of the discussion. Because like we were saying with the critics, like, I do think that if the critics and also, like, you know, the Academy Awards fucking suck, and like they know that Oscar's so white, and they don't always do anything about it. But like, I think there's also like they can't avoid that that's a thing,
right? And they're being more held accountable. That's another. I think that's another way we're going to cross this bridge is accountability.
But that's
you
protesting.
have to start.
But I think protesting is a big part of that, because I don't think people realize. Because I've had discussions with people where it's not like they're like inherently ableist people. It just never occurred to them that crip face would be a thing.
Right.
You know, it's just like, because it is so normal. It's like, remember at the beginning of coronavirus when there was exactly the same amount of threat there is now, but like I was going to an improv show and there was 150 people like packed into a room together, and no one was like even like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And whereas now, like, I have if I try to meet up with a friend, it's like we have to basically go in hazmat suits or whatever, you know, like it's like it really matters what everyone says is okay. Like, that's really so much of like what our thoughts in the world and what we do and the things we think are like, are just about like what does the group of, you know, the society say is okay and what's not okay, and like, and that dictates just way more than I think we like to think. Like, I think that dictates most of our behavior, like 99%. And so I think that protests are a really effective way of getting people to change how they think about stuff. And so I don't know, is it just that we're fighting against gravity? Like, what do we do? Like, is there, I mean, it's disabled people, so we're very good at creative problem solving. Like, if you want a creative problem solver, definitely go to your local disabled person. But like, so I have, like, that gives me hope that we'll figure it out. But then I get depressed when I'm like, but you know, there's all these things come in cycles of like protesting, and a lot of times we're just not as integral a part of them. So it is this worry, is like, are we just stuck in this cycle that we'll never get out of?
I think one of the first things that should be done, or that we should do, is disabled people are taken out of the history of things. I mean, you learn about Helen Keller. Everyone learns about Helen Keller, and I'm not saying you should. I know, and I'm not saying you shouldn't learn about Helen Keller. Her story is very important.
It's like
Her
George
life
Washington Carver
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
of Black history. It's
Yeah.
just like, that's okay, fine, whatever. One person that's not even that important,
right,
really.
I mean, he's important, but
Yeah, but like, you're neglecting, just a giant wealth
yes.
of history.
You're neglecting a huge swath of people that are worth talking about. But disability isn't taught in any of the classrooms. It's not taught in history books. It's and I wish I could just list off a bunch of like disability rights advocates or disabled history, people from disabled history, but I don't know my own history. I'm a disabled person. I don't know my own history.
We even have a podcast about it.
I know, right? I have no idea. So that's right now, because I didn't grow up that way. That's on me. Like, I need to educate myself. I need to figure it out. However,
sort of, but it shouldn't be on us.
No, we should be taught about our disabled brothers and sisters, about the people.
Well, because it's also like, we want that, as it gives us more. I think it really helps, especially when you're like, in college or just out of like when you're starting to become an adult. Like, it helps to know that you are part of a long line of like people who did important things. Because when you feel like you're not part of that at all, when the people around you are part of a different thing that you're not part of, and you have no role models, then it's really hard to just like feel confident in yourself. So I think that it can help if we actually learn it in school. And then I think the other thing it does really well is it makes abled people understand and like, and gives more awareness to them. And so it's like, the fact that we're doing it now, it's like, I think I think you're right. We probably both should be doing it, just especially because we have a podcast. So maybe it'd be a good time to be doing that. But I think it's like, it's kind of too late for like all the ways in it where it'd be super helpful. I mean, it's too late for us, for our generation, but it isn't too late for other generations.
It's never too late to learn, though. You can always learn something.
That's true.
One new thing every day.
I mean, I'll give you that. But I think that like, as for like, it's just the people who aren't going to be, if we haven't done it yet, then I'm sure that a bunch of people with pretty ableist beliefs that have gone unchecked for years are not going to be doing it.
Right. Focus on the younger generation.
Right. Well, that's
focus
what
on
in school, because then you solve the problem for other generations. And there'll always be more generations, and it's always worth changing things for younger people. I don't, just because it's too late to have something in one generation does not mean it's too late to like make it a thing for the future. But
learn, and then maybe all of these spaces that we feel marginalized, all these spaces that we feel that we don't fit in, that the fact that we feel marginalized as disabled people, maybe that wouldn't happen anymore. People wouldn't see us or acknowledge us, and that would hopefully come around to, I'm writing a movie about a disabled character.
I was gonna say,
I'm gonna really cast a disabled actor to play them.
And then there's also like this, being a film student, there is this thing of like this weird kind of chicken and egg thing of media and public consciousness, and how there is this just kind of blur of like you can never fully know which one is pushing which one, but it matters what we see too. So there is like, I think, which is why even if it is an independent movie and not, more people see Iron Man than see like this movie, it still is worth it to like start making a bunch of independent movies that actually do right by us. That just because you don't have a bankable star doesn't mean it's not worth it. And just because the system is built the way it is, you, Mr. White Dude with like enough power to get Alec Baldwin in your movie, like you're the kind of person who's able to like do something about the system, so you have no fucking excuse at all. I think maybe we should wrap up because I know we haven't talked about Blind in a very long time.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, that's
it's important.
That's an important discussion to have. And I mean, it's, what, he started it.
yeah, that's true. He did. He
totally started it.
And I'm glad we had that discussion. And we did have like a discussion about a similar thing on the episode I was editing, but I feel like we talked about a lot of different stuff. So it's good to know that we can keep iterating.
I probably brought Peanut Butter Falcon up on that episode.
I think you did briefly,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, well, we should just keep a running tally now of how many times
that'll be good.
I mentioned Peanut Butter Falcon.
I'm sure there's, I compare curb face to blackface every time we have this conversation. So this time they did that for me, so that was good. I didn't have to do it. But
I think my challenge that I want to set for myself this week is to actually find some disabled film critics.
There are some. I do know
following.
that there are some. I should have them on hand.
Back to Blind, I suppose.
Yeah, back to blind. I mean, do you want to do the blindness acuity test?
I think we should.
The blind acuity test
yes,
in this case?
Yes. Nice.
Yeah. I'll go first this time.
Okay,
if
yes,
that's okay.
please.
So I am going to give this movie, I'm going to give it a 2080, I think. It is, granted, we just had this long discussion about the problematic nature of, the remarks, I think, should reflect badly on the movie. I think that should be taken into account personally, because I think that really does matter, and it seems like the things that he said are very toxic. So I think that overall the movie is it's not offensive, as we said before. It's, Alec Baldwin is charming in his own weird way, we didn't even talk about the problematicness of Alec Baldwin in general as a person.
Trust. I thought about that.
Can we put an asterisk on this whole episode right now?
We'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, we'll just asterisk that we are not.
There's so much to talk about.
I know. It's not even anything about disability, so we'll just say that we acknowledge that he is not a clean figure. No. Yeah. But I think that it's fine. It doesn't have any harmful stereotypes in it. Like just specifically about like the character and it's charming enough. It hits the right things that a movie's supposed to hit, and yeah, and it has some like cute details, even if none of them are like super cool details where you're like, oh, whoa, that's like a thing that only a blind person would know, because obviously no blind people worked in the movie, so that's how you know. But it's like, it's still, they try to like add a bunch of stuff, and that he can see some things, because I feel like, I always talk about how 90% of like blind people have some vision, so really theoretically it should be 90% of the movies we watch, but it's probably the other way around. So that was cool to see someone who actually probably had more vision than like the same vision I do, probably mostly. So yeah, that's kind of middle of the road, but I'm not going to give it a full legal blindness for all those reasons. But how about your rating?
Well, as is usually the tradition, mine is usually a little bit higher.
Right.
So I think I was willing to put this at a 2021 100, but especially after hearing what the director has to say and feeling deeply insulted as a disabled person, as someone who's trying to make it as an actor and an artist.
Definitely.
It just really fucking hurts. So I think I'm squarely at 2020.
Okay. So you gave it we always think that mine is going to be lower than yours, and most of the time it's the other way around.
Not today. I'm squarely at a 2020. I don't think this movie is offensive. I don't think it's breaking any new ground. I think Alec Baldwin is a very watchable actor, if not a decent human being at times.
Yeah.
Which is problematic, and I did try to take that into account watching the movie. Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard because then you have to talk about like separating the art from the artist. And sometimes it's not so easy to do, like we discussed with someone like Alec Baldwin, who you are watching Alec Baldwin and not the character.
Right.
But yeah, I think hearing that the director basically doesn't give two shits about disabled people makes me very sad.
And if he said all that about Alec Baldwin, you can imagine about someone taking his job too.
I know.
Even more furious.
Which makes me wonder how much of an input the director had on Alec's performance.
Oh yeah, I don't
You know,
know.
because I mean, you're working with the director, and the director's working with you, and yeah. So
Right.
So I don't know. These are things that I don't know, but yeah, no, it's squarely at a 20/20. I don't know. Tell your mom to watch it. She'll probably like it.
That's our rating. Tell your mom
Tell
to
your
watch
mom
it.
to watch it.
But
yeah.
caveat that you should maybe look into the people who made it.
Yeah,
The seedy underbelly of this movie.
decide for yourself if Alec Baldwin is right for you. Yeah.
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 Or just know that we do not approve. What's his name?
Michael Mailer.
Mailer. We do not approve Michael Mailer in his
Nope.
comments at all about this movie.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So then we can go into our thing that's cool. That is cool this week. You can go first for the cool thing since go in opposite order.
Oh, okay. My thing that's really cool this week is an oldie but a goodie. I have been rewatching the show Gravity Falls on Disney
yeah.
Plus.
Alex Hirsch.
I love it. I adore this show. It's obviously if you're the one person who doesn't know what Gravity Falls is about, it's about two twins, Mabel and Dipper, who are sent to spend the summer in Gravity Falls, Oregon, with their grunkle Stan, their great uncle Grunkle, who runs the Mystery Shack. And
Yes.
all sort of hilarious mysteries and hijinks ensue. Upon rewatch, this show is so much more adult than I gave it credit for, and I have no idea how they got away with all this stuff on the Disney Channel. It's amazing.
Yeah, I
I
think
love it so
that's-
much.
Yeah, I love hearing all the things that get past censors. Yeah, because I've met Alex Hirsch. He's like,
Oh
a
my gosh, that's so
family
cool.
friend sort of.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, yeah, but I haven't seen Gravity Falls.
No. Okay, well, it's all on Disney Plus. It's only 2 seasons.
Oh yeah, Disney
So
Plus.
yeah, it goes and they go by super fast. Like you can watch 3 or 4 of them in a day.
This is a good time to watch them.
So it's such a good time.
I'm watching 10 TV shows, but it's still a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, but Gravity Falls, there's not too much to say about it because it's a lot has been said, but it's amazing. It's hilarious. This is one of the few shows where I legitimately will belly laugh. I can't watch it at night because my housemate is sleeping because I'm worried that I'm going to wake her up. Because I will
very
just
funny.
and you can hear me from anywhere in the house. So, yeah, it's what's cool this week. It's bringing me life. It's making me happy.
Yes.
Gravity Falls, streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
Nice. It's like so easy to watch. Anyone
Super
can do
easy. Yeah.
it. My thing this week is maybe on the other end of the spectrum, probably a little bit closer to the discussion we were just having about like Black Lives Matter and stuff, is a book. It is called How to Be an Anti-Racist, and it's by Ibram X. Kendi. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I did check an NPR story, but well, whatever. Fingers crossed. It is about racism, obviously, and anti-racism, but kind of it came out I'm pretty sure last year, and it is just like chapter by chapter. The chapters are here. I'm gonna actually read some of the chapters because it gives you a good sense of like the kind of just like breakdown of how racism works and kind of how these cultural norms, like how we build like these myths about race, and then or myths about race, but like how we build the idea of race basically, and like the different ways in which it is used to kind of oppress people basically, and how race is entirely constructed from nothing, and it's not technically real, but then it's also like people use the fact that it's not real as it's also in an oppressive way. He does a way better job of making it seem simple than I am. So it's definitely worth checking out. But some of the chapters are like power, biology, ethnicity, body, culture, behavior. So it's just like we're just like breaking it down thing by thing, and it's just really well written, and it's one of those books that's like about important stuff and written in an extremely like not digestible, but like it's not it doesn't have prohibitive language.
It's not like a wall of academic text that
exactly
you can't penetrate.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like way more written for people who for like people of a lot of different because I mean really, if you write things that are impenetrable, it's ableist as well as being racist and shuts out people who maybe have English as a second language, all these different things. So that's a cool book to check out. It is the audiobook is read by the author, so it is really good. And that again is called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi.
Love it. Since you read that, you should follow it up with a book of poems I read over the week called "Don't Call Us Dead" by Denez Smith. They are an extraordinary writer, and their poems just, I cried multiple times while reading the book. They write about what it means to be black and gay in America.
Oh yeah. Did you was that one of yours in the past?
Yeah, actually, yeah. His other book is Homie, which is the newer one, but I got this one first because
okay.
I have them on hold at the library, and this is the one that came first. So this is the one I actually read first.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll keep that one in then.
Yeah. Very, very, very good.
Nice. That's
"Don't Call Us Dead" by Denez Smith.
and do they have an audiobook?
Yes, they read the audiobook.
Nice. So there you go. Lots of cool like authors reading their own books about race in America. Yeah, fun. Okay. I know it's been a good episode. I love how much we've how serious Blind with Alec Baldwin, the romantic comedy, became very. I think it's just because it's hot in this room. It just brought out the revolutionaries in us.
Yes.
And I realized we did this out of order of what we normally do because we did our things first. But I'm telling what the next movie is, so we're doing.
Yeah, it's your week. What are we watching?
Okay, so we're in a very different kind of movie. This movie is on Canopy, subtitled. I'm not sure how much of it, how much
I'm
dialogue
gonna come
there is.
across this table. No, I'm
Yeah, I
kidding.
know
I'm
you
kidding.
gotta kill me for this. I feel very bad because I feel like I'm only picking subtitle movies as of late. Because I want to get also at some point we're gonna have to do the 55 indie movies from India that have blind characters. We're gonna have to
That's right. There's so
many of them.
That should be a whole episode. That actually would be really fun.
Of just all 56 of I think it's on Wikipedia. They're there is a few different categories of different blind character movies, and one's in India, and it's 56, I believe.
We should have my friend Sambit on if we're doing Bollywood movies, because he is Indian American and he grew up in that film culture. And he would have a lot of it.
Yeah,
he's probably seen a lot of them and would have some interesting things to say.
Yeah, we should definitely get people who are more well versed in Bollywood to come on.
Because I'm not.
For this. Yeah, I'm definitely not either.
I know Om Shanti Om, and that's about it.
Yeah, so I'm excited for maybe at some point we'll just have to start calling people instead of trying to get them to come to the house so we can do it during the quarantine. But I'd love to get more people who can bring cited but different kinds of expertise onto the podcast to talk about other stuff. That'd be really fun.
Anyway, I interrupted you.
No, that's great.
What are we watching next week?
We are watching Quill, The Life of a Guide Dog.
Oh,
So it's about a dog.
it's about a puppy. I have been Googling images of fat dogs for the past 3 days because it's horrible. Don't make your dogs morbidly obese. It's horrible for them. But oh my god, they look so cute.
Well, this will be this is it's like a dog video because it technically is one. It's just an hour and 40-minute Japanese dog video that has a story.
Oh, good. It'll be weird then. Perfect. Oh, man.
I don't know how weird it will be. We'll find out. But yeah. So I think it'll be fun. We need just a dog. I feel like that's the kind of mood we need at this point.
Yes. Oh, most definitely. Absolutely.
Somehow we'll still talk about Black Lives Matter. I'm sure, but But we're trying. We got a dog. Okay.
So that's Quill, The Life of a Guide Dog.
Yep, on Canopy and I think Hoopla. So
Nice.
library
For freezies,
hardcore.
get your library card
Yeah.
if you want to watch along with us.
Yes. I think that's it for the episode. Do you have any other things before I do the credits?
Oh, actually, I don't know if we mentioned it. Blind, if you really do want to watch it, is streaming on Hulu.
Yeah, we might have mentioned it last week.
I can't.
But
We probably did. I can't remember.
But we can. But that's good to say again.
Ta-da!
We did it again. Yes. Yeah. So you can, if you're like, wow, I really love watching Alec Baldwin be a blind person who has some vision, and kind of cantankerous, then yeah, it's on Hulu. Okay, so our theme song is by Lucia Fasano. Our Twitter is White Cane Pod. Our Instagram is Citizen White Cane, and our Facebook is also Citizen White Cane. You can send us an email at citizenwhitecanepod@gmail.com. And if you would like to send us a voice message, are you a film critic who is disabled, or do you have some good scholars or historical disabled people that you think we should know about? You can send us a voice message about that.
Are you a disabled actor who's fed up with the industry or just trying to make it?
Yeah. Are you Alec Baldwin? Just don't be mean to us in the voice message.
You said it. I wasn't going to say it.
And on that note, there's a link in the show notes to leave any of those. And rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, and come back next week where we'll be talking about Quill, The Life of a Guide Dog.
Bye.
Bye.
Speak.
Excuse me?
I'm going to need a little bit more than that.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Keep going.
Well, keep going with what?
For the love of God, would you connect 3 sentences together so I'll have some sense of whether or not the next 2 hours of my bleak and blind life will be bearable or torture to my ears? Could you do that?
Yeah,
You're not doing community service, are you?
I volunteered.
Why? You got a hard-on for blind men?
Citizen